officially in 3 minutes time. So it's just enough time for you to get settled. And we're all here. We're all very excited. We've been chatting for the last half an hour, finding out all of our connections. And you're very welcome. Welcome. We're going to begin officially in 3 minutes time. Oh, that's very weird. I can hear myself now. And we're all here. Woo! Can everybody else hear me in the recording?
Yeah.
Finding out all of our...
Yeah.
Hang on a second. I'm just going to write to Dave and ask about that. It's quite weird, wasn't it? It's like a ghost in the machine. Hello, Peter Shrub. Can you write to us during the meeting? That's a very good question. Yeah, you can see at the bottom there's a Q&A button. You should have a Q&A button. You can press on that and ask your questions, and I'm going to be sort of looking at the questions, and I'll incorporate them through the discussion. Oh, that's good. I haven't got the echo anymore. That was a bit weird. Yeah. So yeah, and that would be lovely. I mean, it'd be really lovely to hear your thoughts and your questions as we go on. I've got a few questions of my own, and then I'll open up towards the end. Oh, sorry, Shub. But did you say Shub or Shub? Peter Shub. Oh, Shub, not shrub or shub, Shub, like hub or pub. Okay, Peter Shub. You could use your Q&A button. How's that? Good, right. So we're just waiting for Sue Brent to get back in to her scene. Okay, I'm going to do the official beginning. This is the actual official beginning. I feel like I need some kind of fanfare. Can anybody provide a fanfare for the beginning?
What?
Fanfare.
Fanfare.
Welcome to the discussion that is about clowning and circus and mental health. I'm Holly Stoppit, and I am a drama therapist and a clown teacher and a director of autobiographical work, mostly around the themes of mental health. And I got given this opportunity to put together a panel to talk about their experience of working with clown, circus and mental health. And I've chosen a really wide panel of very, very different experience so that we can all just, have a little exploration of our processes and each other's processes. And I'm a little bit too excited. That's the truth. For what you're gonna do. So this is the episode 7 of a 7-part series for the Clown Power live discussions, and we've been going through the whole of the lockdown. Twice a week on Wednesdays and Sundays we've been doing these discussions, different themes each time, and they're all on the zoological YouTube channel, and they're all also on the zoological.ie website, so you can go back and you can watch all of these talks and learn everything there is to learn about clowning. There's lots of amazing practitioners, and so the producers Dave and Sasha are doing this off their own back because they've decided to take this opportunity to create this platform for clowns to meet and share our practice with each other. If you would like to fund them, you are welcome to, and they have a Patreon thing that I've highlighted and lost on my piece of paper. Patreon.com/zoological, and we'll put that in the links as well. And feel free to just chuck in a few quid if you're in a position to, and if not, don't worry, don't even worry about it. Who's got any money at the moment? Not many of us. So that's it. That's what we're going to be doing for the next hour. We're going to be chatting about our practice. Well, I'm chairing, but they're going to be talking about their practice as people who bring together clown or circus or both and mental health. So without further ado, I'm going to get you all to introduce yourselves. So a little short introduction. Who are you and what do you do? Who would like to begin? It's Bash. Go Bash.
Hello, my name is
Bash. My actual name's Ash, but I'm mostly known as Bash. And I run an organization called the Flying Seagull Project, or the Flying Seagulls. And we basically focus on communities in crisis and make sure that kids, as well as having the educational, nutritional, and accommodational needs that they also have something for their hearts and souls so they can feel positive. So we do music, circus, art, dance, cinema, trapeze training, tight wire walking, face painting in refugee camps, in hospitals, in war zones, on the edge of conflict borders, and for children with limited lifespan. And it's basically trying to focus on the experience of we're just after your laughter. I just want them to have a vibrantly beautiful time so they know that life is also tingly and wonderful as well as challenging and tough.
Thanks, Bash.
Thanks, Bash.
Yeah, that was brilliant. That was brilliant. There's more time. There's more time afterwards. Who's next? Who'd like to introduce themselves? It's Sue.
I started practicing circus 30 odd years ago, and ended up specialising particularly in aerial work, cloud swing being my absolute speciality. I worked with many different circus companies, and then I eventually stopped to have children. And so when they started primary school, I started taking them every day and began teaching both unicycling and juggling in the school playground. And this then slowly extended into teaching trapeze within the primary school. And after a fairly short period of time, in 2001, I was made the trapeze therapist and brought trapeze onto the curriculum, working 3 full days, teaching, using trapeze as a therapeutic tool for children, particularly with special educational needs. And I carried on doing this work till 2010, and also taught in Acton Burley School, which is a secondary school. So I followed my children from their primary school with the trapeze into their secondary school with the trapeze. In 2010, I had a major breakdown and I was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. I was hearing voices and I started to attend Mind, and I volunteered there for 8 years and made a film about my experiences while I was at Mind, about my hearing voices experiences. And I'm now through that phase of life and hoping to get back into some performing.
Thanks, Sue.
That's it.
Thank you. Who'd like to talk next? It's Jamie.
Hello, my name's Jamie Wood. I've been making theatre for 20 odd years, all sorts of theatre. I trained as a clown at some point along the way, and I also work in hospitals as a giggle doctor. And then the last 10 years, I've focused on making a trilogy of solo shows that have had an autobiographical route, but used clowning. And what else? Worked as a clown teacher. And now I'm training as a psychotherapist. Hello.
Thanks, Jamie. Who's next?
I think it's me. I'm quite in awe of how when people can describe themselves in a little nutshell. I feel that there's one part of me that's always resisted being able to describe myself very quickly. And like, you know, if someone says, what do you do? I say, well, this and this and this. And I feel like for much of my career, I've been playing, you know, the improv game, Yes And, where someone says, do you fancy doing this? And I've gone, yes, okay. And we could maybe do this as well. And so it seemed actually at the time quite directionless. But now when I kind of look back from where I am now, I'm sort of been trying to understand what is it that I do. So I came up with a name for myself. So I call myself a specialist in joy and connection, because this is essentially what's at the heart of all of the things I do. I'm also a giggle doctor with Jamie in children's hospitals, and that moved me onto working in care homes. So some of that was performance related, and some of it was training staff to be more playful, more creative with the way they approach care. In essence, teaching them to approach it like a clown, but never using the word clown. So actually, in all the work I do, I don't ever mention the word clown, but it's there. And one of the other things that I'm very passionate about is I do something which is called everybody friendly screenings. So these are like sing-along screenings. They were initially for people living with dementia, but then eventually I was thinking, no, they need to be for everybody. They're really inclusive. I dress up as Marilyn or Elvis, like the main character of the film. Everyone gets a goodie bag of really silly things to do. It usually involves wearing some kind of costume, and opens up a space for a lot of silliness, a lot of play, a lot of dance and connection. And since this time of isolation and all of my capacity to connect people, I've returned to something which I trained in about 10 years ago, which is laughter yoga. So I've been hosting laughter yoga sessions online, which has been very, very beautiful. In some ways, doing a very crude clown training with people every day, saying, why don't you approach this like a clown, pretend to be a plumber or something, and laughing about it. And it's been very beautiful. I think that's me.
Thanks, Susie. Finally, we've got Martin. Hi, Martin.
I'm going to unmute. There you go, I'm unmuted. Good, yeah, so hi, I'm Martin. I'm a psychotherapist, and I work mostly with couples and families and with individuals and with groups. I do a lot of training with my wife, Hannah Shabursky, who's a family therapist. And what we're doing is we're trying to say that creativity and spontaneity is something that can really help with a whole range of problems, mental health problems, if you can tap into it and if you can access it. So what we've been doing is running a lot of training workshops in how a lot of therapy practitioners need to be given permission to bring creativity and spontaneity, not only to themselves, but to give permission to their clients to be more playful, to be more creative as part of the healing process. And it's something that we really delved into about, well, you know, how much is this inherent in some of the early forms of psychotherapy? And one of the key bits that we're looking at, I'm a psychodramatist and a drama therapist, and one of the originators of psychodrama suggested that creativity and spontaneity was a naturally inherent, innovative way that human beings have a capacity to get themselves out of a mess. And it's that I've been really interested in. I've been writing about with Hannah, helping psychotherapists not to think of themselves as clown, but how is clowning beneficial? How is it therapeutic? I do have a history and a background in clowning and circus, and when I met Jamie this year recently, I don't know if you've done that kind of work, you recognize it in other people, and it's just this real sense of coming back to your family. So I've been out of clowning for a while and out of circus for a while, but I do feel like, oh, wonderful. This is my family. This is my roots about why I trust playfulness and creativity so much. So I'm really glad to be part of today.
Thank you all for introducing yourselves. So I have a few little questions already coming in. How can you introduce oneself? Just wait, I presume. So in this, you're just going to be watching us. There's 6 of us here, and I'm the chair, and then we've got the 5 panelists. And so you're just going to be watching us throughout this hour. So because it's only an hour, we haven't got a chance for everybody to chat. There's at least 80 of you out there watching us right now. So sorry about that. You can find us afterwards. Our details will be in the links afterwards, so you'll be able to get in touch with us if you're inspired by what we're saying. It's 50 people now. Hello. If you've just tuned in, welcome, 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 welcome. We've got a Q&A box at the bottom. It's a little Q&A box that if you've got a question for the panel, for any of us, you can type it in and I will incorporate it at the right moment. So we're going to go with my questions to begin with, just to kind of warm up into this discussion. And anything else that we need to talk about? I'm not sure I'm in on this, as Holly has not said hello to me. Oh, hello. Eleonora, hello. You're welcome. Okay, so my first question, and some of you have already started to answer this through your introduction, but my first question is, how does your work benefit the mental health of your audiences or your clients or your participants? Do you think, how does playful work, creative, spontaneous clown circus work benefit your audience? And it might be interesting to hear some specific examples of a moment where you've seen some real change, or some real that your input has had a real impact, or it might be something more general. So who would like to speak on that? It's Jamie. Come.
So I was thinking about a specific example of my first solo show I made called Beating McEnroe, which was kind of looking at my own masculinity through two tennis figures from the 80s, Bjorn Borg and John McEnroe. And slowly through the show, I invite the audience to become different parts of a crucial point in the 1980 Wimbledon final, and I become the tennis ball. And there was a point after the show that I did in Manchester where a guy in his early 30s came up to me and he said, "You've inspired me to come out to everyone I know. Only my very closest friends know I'm gay, but seeing your show and seeing how free you were on stage, I'm going to come out." And so I found that quite surprising. But that was my initial thought when you were asking the question. And then I was thinking about my teaching and directing. And I was thinking, very often this portal of the word clown, it's about a permission for people to explore a part of themselves that perhaps they're ashamed of, or that is very deep inside themselves that perhaps is released through play and through making connections in themselves and in their body and in a space with other people. Thanks.
Thanks, Jamie. And we've got Susie.
Yeah,
Susie.
I totally agree with you, Jamie. It's for me as well, it's a lot about the permission to play. Especially I'm thinking about in my everybody friendly screenings, there's something about, I dress up, I've gone completely to town, here I am, I'm Audrey Hepburn, and I'm doing sort of 150% version of Audrey Hepburn. And one of the things I've learned is, you know, if I'm doing 150%, potentially that enables somebody to do 30% when they might not have done anything. And just saying, okay, there are some tap dancers on the screen, and when they do that, we're going to bash these spoons together. And sometimes when somebody, you know, I can just see somebody just doing this and they're engaging with something. It's just a true delight. But I'm thinking about a really wonderful moment when I'd done about 6 screenings and then we did Mamma Mia. Now, this is going to sound negative about Mamma Mia, but one of the great things about it is that the plot is, it's not so important in some ways, which means that you can really play over the entire film. And one woman who had been coming to every single one just suddenly understood that she could dance the whole way through this film. And she stood up and she started to lap the cinema. It's a very big cinema. and she was just running around, a lady in her 70s. And obviously Mamma Mia has a following from younger crowd, and there was a large group of people from a centre with complex needs. So a guy in his 20s saw what she was doing, and he was like, that looks fun. And he watched her go around, and then he just stood waiting for her, and he held his arm out, and they just hooked arms together and they ran together, and they just kept going. And I just was like, this is everything I've ever wanted, this connection, this inclusivity, this space to express and feel like you belong with all that you are. So yeah, that's my story.
Oh, thanks, Susie. Should we have one more person to speak on this one? Bash.
Hi. So, I mean, for us, it's kind of, in the Seagulls, it's kind of much more immediate and quite clunky, because I say the last 4 years, we focused most of our work in the refugee camps, and specifically the hotspots on the islands of Greece, so Lesbos and Samos, where all the boats arrive that people have seen. So the impact is just every single day, quite immediate. But I guess it's kind of tying into what the others said, which is, we talked about space, and in the camps, it's like we literally have to create, not metaphorically, first we actually have to create a space that they know that they're invited and belong in. So we build a big top. So in Samos, we have a big top up, or we create a huge circle with ropes. But so from physically creating a space, we then also, like Susie was just saying, we create the permission for them to have the confidence to almost, I've written it down here, the confidence to claim space and declare their existence. Because the kids we're working with, they are very, very painfully aware of their situation. They're very aware that the mood towards people seeking refuge isn't wholly positive for many people, and in fact is extremely opposed by many people. And imagine being 6 or 7, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, and knowing that lots and lots of people who have never met you really don't want you and want you to go. It's a terrible feeling. So we counteract that with, and it's kind of the clown and kind of the noise, with that immediate declaration. So to talk to them about mental health, the first thing they have to do, I think, each day is they have to believe that they're valued and that they belong. So we get a huge circle, and we scream in the tops of our voices. We sing songs like watermelon, pineapple, but we don't sing them nice. We go, watermelon. And rather than the kids being unwanted, we're demanding more. We go, come on, energy. And it's like the immediate impact. You see them physically stand to their full height. You see them go from quiet little responses to roaring. And I think even just that, we're going to go into more, and some of the guys have covered it already, but that impact of being confident enough to actually believe that you're valuable, and actually believe that the space that you're in is as much yours as anybody else's, which is, I think, what the circus does, and what the theatre does, and what all these things we're talking about, what a therapeutic room or space looks like. It's knowing that you're welcome. And I think that is wonderfully essential. And the clown having such low status, no woman should fancy me, no man should be threatened by me. I'm just a clown with a big ginger beard, so there's no threat. So we take competitiveness out of the space. You're just welcome. You, in your too tall, too small, big-eyed, small nose, whatever you are, with the clown, already that relationship space is so open and welcoming. So that was probably already too many examples. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But
thanks, Bash. I'm wondering, Martin, whether you'd like to talk on, sort of pick up on that and talk about the space.
Yeah. One of the things I realize is if you're feeling unwell, if you've been suffering from a trauma or anxiety or depression or something like that, your spontaneity level and your creativity level is often quite low, and so the therapist may have a high creativity spontaneity level, and what you're trying to create is an encounter between the client and yourself, so that the client can come up with new solutions to their entrenched problems. And so what Hannah and I have been trying to teach in our workshops is that your level of invitation to somebody needs to be really titrated to begin with. It needs to be a kind of creative warm-up, the goal of it is to get their spontaneity and their creativity and their playfulness to come alive again. And so what we're talking about is something called therapeutic spontaneity and creativity, and it's something that we're teaching. I'd love to do more of this work with clown communities and clown populations and circus populations, to let them kind of understand how really you can do incredible repair with somebody who's very, very fragile over a period of time. You know this, Holly, as a drama therapist, that you know, when you're interviewing a drama therapist for a job, you don't want somebody who's too gregarious and who's got too many creative ideas. You want somebody who's really able to be so gentle. I've seen Jamie perform in some of his shows, and he's just so beautiful, so soft, so gentle towards the audience. And once the audience is warmed up, then that bigger, more playful, powerful, creative self can invite the audience to be that way too. So is this the role of the therapist, is like the role of the clown in society, is it's giving the audience an invitation to be as bonkers as they can be. And you see this in street theatre, you know, so much of it is not so much about the performer, but about the relationship between the audience becoming as activated as the clown is. That's when you know that you're doing that. And I think that's what Bash is saying there too, that, you know, it's about how do we get the audience to give us back what we're giving, so that we're both in this extraordinary place where our kind of where the normality of life and something that Moreno called the normosis disease starts to go away, and we start to become more playful together. I don't know if that gives you a sense of that, Holly.
Yeah, that's so lovely. It's such a lovely way of thinking about it. Activating the audience, activating participants through your own spontaneity and your own creativity. Sue, did you have something to add to that?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was just trying to unmute myself. Yes, I just wanted to talk a little bit about bringing trapeze as a therapy into schools, so trapeze therapy, to talk about the same kind of thing. So I was working initially with children who had great difficulty with being in school. They were children who might not be succeeding elsewhere in school. They might not have enjoyed being at school at all. And so they were chosen by the head teacher as a small group to come and to do trapeze with me. And I would work with them mainly in groups of 2. And depending on how they arrived, we would have all manner of different warm-ups. So some children came with so much energy, I just had them running around the room for 5 minutes as their warm-up. Sometimes we played basketball, sometimes we juggled, we did all manner of different things. And then they all came in the beginning and watched somebody who'd done some trapeze before, and they all looked like, oh my God, I can't do that. And I started them all off with a move which is very relative. It's not necessarily easy, but I help them to do it, which is a star. It's a very empowering move because you're completely spread with your legs and your arms spread apart, and it makes you feel very, very strong. And they all began with that particular move. And as one child was on the trapeze, the other child who was waiting would record their feelings in a book that I had. We called it the feelings book. So they could draw or they could write about how they felt prior to getting on the trapeze. And then they would exchange round and write about how they felt having come off the trapeze. And the change in them was just extraordinary. And the empowerment that they felt was just so massive and so fast in happening. And one thing that was important was that they were coming to have fun. That was the point. They were chosen specifically to have fun. And it extended from, it basically extended to everybody. It became a trapeze school. there was funding coming in for the Seagull department, for the gifted and talented. I hate those terms, but there was funding coming in from everywhere. So everybody was having access, and hundreds of children in Brookfield Primary School did trapeze with me. So it was really a trapeze school. It was quite something quite special. And yeah, so I think the value of the creative arts is absolutely massive, and the value of circus arts can be used very much to for increased self-esteem and for boundaries and for sharing of one's fears and understanding fears of other people, cooperation. So there are so many aspects that are so helpful to children. So
thanks,
yeah.
Sue. It's brilliant. Thank you. And there's something that I want to just pick up on before we go into the next question. I'm just really noticing the importance of embodiment. It feels like that's really central to everybody's practices, is that it's experienced through the body, that the clown, the performer, the therapist, the facilitator, we're there to activate the audience, to activate participants, and through this work we're helping them to unite somehow with their bodies, their emotions, their experience of being alive. Seems to be something we have in common. I want to bring it back to you as a practitioner, you as a performer, you as a facilitator, you as a human being. And I would like, if you feel like it, for you to give us a little snapshot into your process about how you create your work, how you look after your own mental health within the work that you do. So would anybody like to speak about their creative process? Bash, you're on.
Okay, our creative process is again, like I'm sure everyone's is different to everyone else's, but I feel like because we don't have any time, we don't have a moment. Like we can make a show, but a show will work in one camp, and it will be an absolute disaster in another. We can have games that work in a space in the Roma communities of Romania, but it would absolutely flop elsewhere. So we'll, rather than actually have a process of what we're going to do, we have a process of how we're going to do whatever we end up doing. And a lot of that, like going back, it's really good that you highlighted that embodiment thing, is I think rather than, you said we help them to, I can't remember what your wording was, we help them to connect with their bodies and connect with themselves, but it's also to connect with us. I think that the lovely bit of the clown is, in theatre, people talk about the fourth wall or whatever. Like, there's no walls. So like, literally with us, there's no walls, and there's not even a stage, or there's not even anything most of the time. So it's actually, the process is more knowing how we're going to share the space with them, rather than what we're going to do when we get there. And a lot of that is just letting go of desiring an output. And rather, like you pointed out, we're desiring an experiential exchange. So I don't care if a kid ever learns to juggle in my workshop. I don't care if we even make it to the end of a film on our cinema night. I don't care if they learn the words of the song. I would like them not to fight whilst we play together. I care about that. I would like them all to choose to join in. So it's never fixed. They never have to come to our sessions. We offer them the opportunity to engage in that sort of energy, and we make it so attractive with the noise and the fun. So there's things like, our processes is figuring out how can we make our offer so open, so genuine, so attractive. Like, tight wire is cool. Our trapeze going up outside a refugee camp or inside the camp, putting up a 7-meter trapeze and having someone on a hoop that high up, like, we have to define how we make it so desirable, and so, like you talked about the gentle intro, Martin, and needing to make the offer gentle. Ours is that exactly, but it's like a huge sensory fun fair, and all you've got to do is just come if you want, but you don't have to. So that's where the gentleness for us comes. It's like there's no obligation. There's a couple of rules: no fighting, and no one has to join in. You can come and go as you want. If you fight, you get a warning. If you fight twice, you come and see me, and I do this disappointed face. Oh, why? And the third time, you have to, third strike, you're out and come back the next day. But in terms of process, and then I'm going to finish again, like I'm trying to make my answers really short, but our process is to really make specific, is how do we make sure that each participant feels like they belong? And and that's the whole point. Belonging in a juggling workshop when you can't move your arms, or belonging in a show when you're not able to see. So we've done numerous circus shows for blind audiences. Doesn't matter one bit. When we do the clown workshops, and it's like, what I ask them, what color wig do you want? You know, in Romania used to work in a blind school every week, and they'd say red, and I'd swap it. And I said, well, you're allowed to have a favorite color, whether you've seen it or not, or however you feel red is, you've got a favorite color maybe. And it's about how to make them feel like they belong. And I think that's to do with authenticity of energy exchange, is to do with genuine manifestation of your love and compassion through the craft that you're choosing to offer. And it's most of all about being really, really 100% determined and committed to connect with that person in their truest state of where they're at. If they're depressed, if they are unwell, if they are angry and violent because of their status in the camp, then there's no such thing as wrong. They can't be, yeah, come on, we're going to help you this. They're just welcome as they are, how they are, just 2 rules: no fighting, and you can leave or come and go as you want. So it's about making them belong. For our job, it's what makes them not feel belonging is if it rains. If it's bad weather, they live in a tent. The tent, that's proof they don't belong. The bad food that the Greek government served them, awful. It shows they don't belong. So each one of those, we have to counteract. So if it's cold, even heat, but what is all our survival around is about heat. So we move and we put a heater on in the big top and we hand out warm hot chocolate in the winter. So even things like heat shows you belong. Something sweet shows you belong. Something that is appropriate shows you belong. And the care to take you through challenges show that you belong. So our process is that. Our process is how do we make sure that the most unbelievably exciting and cool stuff there is, like trapeze and knife juggling and tightrope walking, how do we make sure that every human, regardless of their physical or psychological or societal position, knows they belong, at least having a go?
Yeah, thank you, Bash. That's really vivid. I can really see all of that. I can see you all there on the camps in the tent with the heater on. I was thinking about the thing that you said there about, it feels really key actually for everybody, this letting go of the outcome of what you think is going to happen and staying open to what is going to happen. So who would like to talk about that in terms of creative process, in terms of how you make your work? I'm thinking of Jamie actually. I'm thinking about your autobiographical shows and yeah, the process of creating them.
Yeah, great question. I mean, so the first autobiographical show I made, I had wanted to make a solo show for about 6 years, and I was just too scared to do it. And I was observing the work I was doing in hospitals, kind of from an outside perspective. And I kept thinking, when I do that work, I'm really light and easy, and it's all about the children, the nurses, the doctors, the families I meet, and it's not about me. I say, how can I make an autobiographical show but take myself out of the equation? So my first step was getting someone in the room who I trusted implicitly. And I was lucky enough to work with a fellow giggle doctor called Ellie Griffiths. And I said to Ellie, whenever you feel like I'm getting all serious and trying to be good, can you just remind me of how I work in hospitals? And interestingly, over the time in the process, she got much more serious than I did about making the show. So it became this great kind of wrestle between the two of us. But it was about a lightness, playfulness, and creating a space that was deeply trusting, where I could feel I just as I want an audience to explore all the aspects of themselves that they feel that they maybe haven't visited for years and years and years, I have to create a space and bring collaborators into that space that I trust implicitly. So I can propose something at the beginning of the day and they will go, okay, yeah, have a go. And I'll explore, improvise, play. And I feel safe in that room. And then over time, we discover what the show is. I hope that answers something.
Yeah, something about safety being central to creative process, and I know for myself that really is the case, and I've really learned to bring in the conditions that help me to feel safe so that I can create. Anybody else want to talk about their own personal process? Susie?
Yeah, it's making me think about, I can't remember, somebody said something a little bit earlier about difficulty, and I was thinking, actually, I found that great difficulty has been a space for me where creativity comes, and where I've been really appreciative of my creativity to help me kind of pull myself out of something. So something which surprised me, because I didn't really know it was a creative project that I was doing, was a point where I was really very down about something, and I had just begun to do a gratitude practice. So at the end of every day, writing what's been good about the day. And it happened to all go a bit wrong on the 5th of April, which anybody self-employed knows is the end of the tax year. And in the years before, I had a little bit of sort of play around the tax return, saying, you know, it's a painful thing to do. So it was like taking the approach of a clown, approaching it with a playful attitude to help me through this difficult thing. So the timing sort of worked, that on April the 6th, I woke up saying, I have to convince myself that life's good. And I also want to keep on top of my tax return. So I created something. I just set up a page on Facebook, which is called Susie's Tax Return Journey. And for a year, I said, I'm going to every day show you that I've stuck my receipts in my scrapbook, and I'm going to stick my gratitude list in at the end of the day. And then I'm going to write about it. I'm going to write about what was the best bit of the day. And it became a positivity blog. And it expanded into me taking photographs of me joyful about my tax return alongside beautiful people. And in having this kind of framework that I'd created to have to speak about how lovely the other person was, what was great about that day, I found myself more and more uplifted, and found other people in turn, as a knock-on effect, uplifted by it. And yeah, it became something which I hadn't expected it to be, basically. So this was a sort of process of, I'm approaching this thing like a clown. So it's not a performance, but it's lifting me. And when I looked back and went through my tax return in January, there was no evidence that anything had been bad that year. And so though I sort of knew it, everything I read was extremely positive. So it sort of pulled me out of something because of a playful approach to something.
Thanks, Susie.
Yeah.
So just briefly, Martin and Sue, if you'd like to respond to this, and then I'm going to get onto the questions that there are loads of now. Martin, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I just wanted to say how Susie reminded me that we have like a creativity muscle that needs to be developed, and that if you hit a low, and Sue might kind of agree with this, that in some ways it's like if you've exercised your playfulness and your creativity and your spontaneity, that if you actually don't exercise that creative playful muscle for a while, it's still there, and you can activate it when you need it as a way of getting yourself out of a stuck situation. And it's this idea that spontaneity is something that you can develop, and you never lose it in some ways. I don't know if Sue agrees with that, and if that's in keeping with what you were just thinking.
Yeah, I'd be interesting to hear from Sue about the role that creativity has played in your own mental health journey and your own recovery.
Well, I would like to speak about what happened to me with my mental health was literally overnight. that I suddenly started hearing voices, and it was absolutely a terrifying experience. So I stopped work completely, and my life, just everything that was dear to me went out of my life. I was just basically on my own with this experience. And for 2 years, I was actually just lying down, listening. For 2 entire years, I just lay down on the floor, listening to the voices. And then I somehow got the Mind phone number, and I phoned them up and happened to speak to the general, who was the general manager at that point. And I said, I'm hearing voices, I don't know what to do. He said, oh, well, I run a hearing voices group. And I said, what? Because I thought I was just the only person in the world who was experiencing this. And I said, well, where are you? And he told me, and I said, what? That's walking distance from my house. Like this, I couldn't believe it. So I started going there, and pretty immediately I began working as a receptionist. So for 8 years, I was working as a receptionist. And for the first 2 years there, I could barely speak. I couldn't sit in a room with people, but I could stay in my little booth and answer the door and answer the phone and so on. And Mind offer a lot of different creative experiences. There's mosaic, for example, there's yoga, there's movement classes, there are reading groups, there are all manner of different creative things that you can get involved with. I wasn't able to for a long time. I did make a film on the trapeze about my experiences with voices. And
how was that? That's the bit, the making the film. And how was that influential for your journey?
It was great, actually, because quite a number of the voice hearing people made films to represent how they experienced their voices. And mine had an absolute cacophony of sounds. So there was the sound of sort of a hurdy-gurdy cut in, and lots of racket and sort of circus sounds in there. And I was just twizzling on the trapeze. So it was very, very hectic. And so as I began to come slightly more into myself, I became very playful with the other service users. So that's how kind of my creativity has returned to me, is kind of by being the fool at Mind, and then taking over the running of the voices group, because I am a voice hearer myself. So I'm very effective in working with other people who hear voices. And I bring playfulness into that situation when it's a good thing to do. It's quite a serious group often. But I encourage people to get involved with the creative process in one way or another. And yeah.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you. It's lovely to hear about your journey. So I'm looking at the question and answer box. There are loads of questions. When there's no way that we're going to get through all of these because we've only got 15 minutes left, but I'm going to go for the more general questions, and maybe we'll just do quick fire. 1 or 2 people can answer each of these questions. If you've got personal questions here, then we've got our links. You can find our links, and you can find us and actually ask us directly. But so I'm going to go for the general questions. The first one from Robbie Falston. Hello, Robbie, up in Edinburgh. He says, how can we work together to integrate this work into communities / social structures in the brave new world we're shuffling uncertainly into? How can we work together to integrate this work into real life? Anybody want to speak on that? It's Bash.
Hello. I mean, I think the step one has got to be, and discussions like this is helping, but it's got to be a real recognition of its value. Because I think, I don't know if anybody else gets this, but I often get asked to go on, especially during the kind of peak of what people call the refugee crisis. I got asked to go on a few interviews for, national news and things. And each time it did, I was like the QN story, like, there's a duck who's adopted some puppies, and this guy does clowning in refugee camps. And it was like this kind of bolt-on, kind of quirky other story, rather than it ever being like, you know, there is, it's not a weight to it, but there's a higher value than, I think it's often written off as like a flippant side thing. On the side, there's these funny clowns. On the side, there's these swirlers and twirlers on trapezes. And it's kind of this flippant extra. And I think discussions like this and some of the amazing studies that are going on, there's more and more research into this sort of field, and especially, you know, through giggle doctors and clown doctors and that stuff too. Like, there is quantifiable impact studies that prove that children recover quicker when they are regularly visited by clowns in hospital. So it's like, it's kind of no longer refutable, but maybe before we really make it mainstream, we have to really embrace that truth. We have to promote these studies. We have to have proper discussions. You know, there has to be provision, you know, even within the education syllabus, within the health syllabus. In the refugee crisis, I've been pushing for a long time now, that first response to a crisis zone when there are children, as well as food and accommodation and healthcare, is also got to be play care. You know, like, play is how kids live healthily. Without it, it's an unhealthy childhood. So I think that's probably the first step, is that we continue to support those practitioners who are leading the way. We continue to promote each other and the work, focusing on the impact, focusing on the beneficiaries, or whatever horrible, you know, word we need to use to say people who take part and like it, but also to really promote those bits of research in a way of advocating for them to be included in the more mainstream, more kind of governance documents, like, as I say, like early years syllabus in education and those things. You know, we've got to take it on. And then I think when we value it like that, there's a chance for it to become more part of our kind of cultural tapestry, and the tapestry of care and of workshops and education.
Thanks, Bash. Susie, did you have your hand up?
I did. I was probably just going to agree. I think it's just about saying that it needs to be validated as a thing that's essential rather than add on. I think I'm noticing that with hosting laughter yoga sessions online. People are like, well, that sounds fun. And then there are other people who are saying, I felt anxious, now I feel better. And, you know, I don't have any scientific evidence to say this is a good thing and that it's actually supporting people at a fundamental health level. So there is something about the validation of it that's, yeah, totally agree with.
One more person to speak on this, it's Sue.
Yeah, my dream with this really is that, one, that there is the possibility that this could be brought into schools in general, and the other is that with the situation we're in now, where I think there's a lot of, we're going to need to rethink a lot about how our world functions in general, and how money is spent and where money is spent. And I feel that it would be hugely beneficial, and not in the least bit impossible, to have houses which are not being used, for example, or ask of housing associations to provide buildings where which could be run on a voluntary basis. For example, at the National Circus space, I call it the circus space in Hoxton, there are always people who are coming, who are practitioners, who are wanting somewhere to stay. So I would feel that people like that would be able to stay in one of these buildings. They would provide training to children and people who would come to learn, and the whole thing could be run on a voluntary basis, and that could happen in every single borough across the whole of the country. And I don't see why that would be an impractical thing to do.
I love that as a vision. I love that. Yes, yes, why not? I've got more questions for you. But there's one here. Maxwell Stewart says, how do you think we can best support older clowns who are obviously struggling with lots of issues such as old age, mortality, loved ones passing. And I guess we can sort of open this up because, you know, we are living in the time of coronavirus and that is happening. So how can we use our skills as clowns, as playful people, to support ourselves with all that's happening right now? Maybe particularly about older people, but maybe just everybody. Anybody have anything to say on that? Oh, no, everybody's gone very quiet. Oh, here comes Jamie.
I think the reason I was so long putting up my hand is I don't know if I can say anything intelligent, but for me, so I think what my brain has done is it's taken your question about a specific bunch of people, and it's I think it's about space, because when you talk about losing loved ones, that's going to be difficult in any situation for anybody. And I think my experience of clowning is to the possibility that in just sharing what is really difficult inside and having other people share, that creates an incredible intimacy, and it opens up something that feels very heavy, like a burden to carry, and suddenly you're sharing that space. I think that's my very basic answer.
Yeah, I think there's something really beautiful in that. The intimacy that comes around through tapping into the clown skills, not just in terms of performance on stage, but in life. And Ollie Crick mentioned here about empathy being our main skill as clowns. That's our main skill. And so embodying that empathy, choosing to embody that empathy and to walk through life with your heart wide open is, in my view and in my practice, it's a political act to lead with the heart. So yeah, I guess that's my tuppence worth on it. On the same line, oh, Martin, yeah.
I wanted to say something about group clowning. So a troupe of clowns together. The Buffon work I was involved in was really interesting because it was about maybe 4 or 5 people being vulnerable, but actually protecting each other in front of an audience. And it's something about that safety in numbers that I think is really helpful for vulnerable groups of people. So for example, a troupe working with a group of elders who are maybe feeling vulnerable, their group vulnerability, their identity with each other is somehow inviting the audience member who may feel as if they're on their own and they're managing very poorly with their situation, to see a group of Buffon clowns really loving each other and then stepping forward and maybe doing a dance routine or an acrobatic routine and then going back into a huddle. You know, I think that can be very, very healing for somebody who feels on their own and feels isolated. Yeah.
There's something about tribe, and that this word has been coming up a lot for me through this whole pandemic, the word tribe. And actually during this corona time, I've never felt more connected. Like this whole thing has popped up during this epidemic to connect us up and to connect other people up to this clown way. I have another question. I saw you had your hand up there, Jamie. Sorry about that, but I do have another question here in the chat box, which was, how do we go about activating the audience in online events where it's hard to tell what emotional and energy state the audience is in? So I guess I'm thinking about tribe online, because this is it. Like, this is our option at the moment. We can't meet, we can't be in a room together, we can't breathe together, we can't feel each other. So this is the best we've got. Who's got any tips on that, Susie?
Yeah, I think I've been really enjoying the journey of exploring this, how to do that. And I think one of the things that has really helped me is everything that's been shared already about creating a space saying this is a safe space for you to be activated, and laying down what the boundaries are. It's going to last this long, it's going to be like this. So with the laughter yoga at the beginning, I'm saying these are all the reasons why you might do it, and I'm actually speaking as frankly and as normally as I can, and then saying it's going to be really crazy for a bit, and then we're going to calm down for a bit. And yeah, I can't always tell what's going on, but I'm really, as I've been doing it for 5 weeks now, I'm able to sort of read a bit more the room, how everybody is doing. Are people able to participate? And judging from, by the end, there's been a beautiful thing that happens at the end where we all just wave at each other and we just call out each other's names. And actually it's one of my favorite parts of the whole class, where we just call out, bye Holly, bye Jamie. It's just the cutest thing. So that's just been my route into it. Everything that you've said before, creating a safe space, really.
So we're moving into our final 5 minutes, just to let you know, but I think Bash has a little something that he wants to say on this subject.
Yeah, obviously, like everybody, and it's almost kind of pointless to repeat it, but yeah, this medium takes away what we normally consider to be our strongest working method, which is actual live connection, like in a room, in a circle, in a tent, whatever. But I think that one of the ways we kind of touched on it before, and Martin touched on it right back at the beginning of the whole discussions, which is about making that offer one that can be accepted. And then I went on and talked about how like it's making it so that you feel safe enough to join the offer, but you don't feel obliged to. So there's not that pressure. And some of that comes from the authenticity of the offer. So obviously we work overseas. I almost never have the language. I don't have any language. In the camps, I learned some Arabic only to speak it, and a Kurdish kid go, why are you talking to me in Arabic? And then a Farsi speaker says to me, why are you telling me this in Kurdish? I'm like, I give up. I can't speak all 7 languages in one word. So it means that the communication has to be an energetic exchange. And actually, like a couple of days ago, I was doing it was a young person's innovation forum, and I was meant to be in Sweden, given a physical 1.5 hour energy workshop. And they said, can you still do it? And I thought, I can't say no to an innovation workshop because I don't want to innovate my workshop. So I had to go, yeah, sure, of course. And I realized that actually it still has to be authentic. You know, you still have to, when you're talking to a camera, you still have to actually want to communicate with the person that you're communicating with. And if that's 50 people, or like now, like 80, that I can't see any of you guys on Zoom, I still love you and I still want you to understand and I still want to connect with you. So I don't actually need to. It will be much nicer when we all get together. But I don't need to see you, or I don't need to be in the room with you to still desperately want to, you know, pump all the energy and the energy of my thoughts and my heart or whatever, and yours to me. And I think the final kind of little quick thing is we used to do shows in Ghana. We did shows in every single deaf and every single blind school in the whole country. And when I first got there, in the deaf schools, we started not kind of, we'd say words rather than yell them. We'd go, okay. And our bodies be like that. And I go, are you ready for a magic show? And I think, why am I doing that? And then the next day we did it full volume. And even if they could hear or not, the energy was back to where it should be. So I think whilst we're doing this stuff online, let's not half-heart it. Let's not shortchange each other. If you're going to do a laughter yoga workshop, it's still laughter. If you're going to chat, still chat. Still, it's a weirdness, but it's one that if we have genuine compassion to communicate, I think we can bypass some of the oddities around this digital exchange.
Yeah. Oh, it's just turned 1 o'clock. I feel like we're just beginning. I feel like we could keep going for days and days on this. It's so fascinating to hear these little nuggets from your lives, and I wish we had more time. Yeah, connection. It feels like it's interesting. We've ended up here in the theme of connection. It's really central to my work. About my work. If you don't, you look me up. I just did a TED talk about clowning and connection, and it's really beautiful. It's a really beautiful way to invite connection into your life through clowning and through play. And it's easy. Like, it's easy to do it through clowning and play. So yeah, have a look at my website. But look, before we end, I want to say thank you to all these amazing panelists for giving their time and their hearts and their work and their lives, and thank you. And I want to say thank you to the producers for making this all happen. And if you also would like to thank the producers, chuck a little bit of money into their Patreon account. It's patreon.com/zoological. You can find all the videos of the previous talks, the previous 6 talks on Zoological on the website and also on YouTube, and look us up. We're taking a week off, or Zoological are taking a week off, and they'll be back next Sunday this time with the next talk, which will be about something else with a whole different bunch of clowns. And what else do I need to say? I can say, oh, if you'd like to give us a possible theme that you'd like to see discussed on this show, then you can send us a suggestion in the chat at the bottom of your screen. We've covered gender, so we've covered female clowning, female and non-binary clowning, male clowning, clowning in a cultural context, a clown's circus academia, and criticism in circus. And we had a one-to-one with Hilary Chaplin. So that's what we've covered so far. But let us know what you want to hear about, and Zoological will put the panel together on that. What else do I need to say? We're going to keep this, we're going to stop the recording in a moment, but we're going to keep this chat room open. If any of the participants would like to stick around for a little bit, you can come on. We'll reset the thing so you can come onto screen, and maybe just for 20 minutes or so, if there's anything you want to say to us or anything you want to check in with us about, you can have a look at the links at the bottom of the video and find each of these amazing practitioners and really ask them questions. I'm pretty sure they'll all be happy to answer your questions. Would you unmute yourselves, panel?
Yes.
We're going to do the Susie